at some point, a business or in life, you're going to hit a ceiling and you're going to need help.
Yeah.
Whether from your wife, whether from your kids, whether from friends or coaches or whomever, you're going to need to lean on somebody to allow yourself to evolve, right? And to move through that.
Hey, everybody, I'm here today with Justin Boling, and we are having some amazing leadership conversations around knowing your true, authentic self, being that, living that, and how that helps you to lead your team, lead your business, and lead your family. Check it out. Hey, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Would you make sure to please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel here, and please share this episode with somebody whose life it will make better. Justin Boling.
What's up, man?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Been excited to have you on.
I'm excited to be here, man. It's like I was telling you before, I think this might be the first time on the other side of the camera for me.
You've been deemed worthy as a guest. We were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
Super excited. Super excited.
Man.
We're new friends. Like, we literally just met a couple of months ago. You jumped into our Foundry group to talk a little bit about what you're doing in business
Yeah,
these
it was
days.
early October, something like that, I think. And I think we both cried.
Dude, I was a hot mess that day. No, it was September.
Was it September? Okay.
Yeah, I think the culmination of everything going on in life and business and faith just like punched me in the face.
Yep.
And I came in there and I'm like, I can either lie about it or just be honest.
Right. Yeah. So you said something and cried, and then I said something and cried, and it was friends from tears. Yep.
What I think is cool is, like, I just love hanging out with faith-based men that are doing business, doing life, doing leadership, doing family. They're vulnerable. They're real. I just feel like as men in the leadership capacity, we have to create spaces and places to be able to be real and just be raw and be vulnerable, right? Like the Foundry was a great example, but love to just hear your story and like where you make space to do that. I want to encourage everybody, but specifically just men in the business space, that have to lead people and be there for people. And, with what you're doing with EOS, realize their gifting, realize what they're not good at and how to lean into that and be themselves.
Yeah.
So
there's tons there, man. Yeah. I mean, we can start wherever. I think the biggest piece of that for me in a journey standpoint is like the ability to know who you are in that. And I think the ability with that to say, take your journeys and take those moments and start to peel away and be comfortable, right? Like, I've always been somebody who's good at a lot of things. Yes. I've never been great, I would say, at one or two things.
Yeah.
And so to then find things that I'm finally feel like I am great at, right? Like later on in my life, not that I'm old, but is pretty cool.
Gray.
I got some gray hair,
man.
You
got like the good slick gray mixing it with the black.
Yeah.
It looks good.
Yeah. With my haircut style too, it's like once, if I get a haircut, I look younger, right? Once it grows out a little bit, I look older because the gray hair pops out.
It's got to help you in business though. If you roll in with more gray, do they?
It probably depends on the audience. That's a good tip. I've never
try it.
I should. Maybe I'll grow it out. I got to
split test it.
Yeah, right. We'll see what happens. That could be good.
You mentioned to come off of what you just said. You said, "Hey, I'm 41, and I just realized that I feel like I'm the most comfortable in my own skin with your identity and who you are." Talk a little bit about that. Where you're at now. How you journeyed up to that.
I guess how back early do you want to start, man? I remember in 5th grade, my buddy, Jake, broke my Rockies pencil and I cried.
Okay.
And I was made fun of. So I stopped crying pretty much until I got married. Right. Yeah. So it was like things like that where it's like, they stick with you, right? Those little moments. Yeah. And so you don't become your real self because your real self at whatever moment or age was rejected.
Yes.
Right. And so to now be 41, and like I tell people all the time, I'm like, I'm a crier. Like, got married 16 and a half years ago. I was the one that cried. Like, I couldn't get through my vows. Like, I was just a bawling baby.
Yeah.
Right. But like, that's who I am. I'm a crier. Like, I cry on the airplane when I watch a movie. Like, I cry, when my kids are doing stuff. Like, I'm a crier. Like, it is who I am. But to be that, right, and now be 41 and be comfortable with that, like, that's a trip. But at the same point, it's like, it's super freeing to do that and to say, hey, yeah, I am a crier. Oh, you don't really care if you don't like it. Like that's who I am. Right. And to see that and do it with a confidence, that's then where I think where the authenticity comes in and people really respond to that. Right. And so you can build, like you were saying, like hanging out with like-minded people, you find the people that are open to that or not open to it. Right. And those are then the people you want to build a life with.
Love that. And so that kid breaks your pencil. You were a crier up to that. And then was it literally like, because that's a core memory, right? I didn't lead you there. That's
I remember in the moment, I made
right?
the decision in that moment.
Never going to cry.
Yeah. Shut it off.
How long did that last?
Till I got married. Like not joking. Like right before we got married, like my wife thought I was going to break up with her. Cause I was like, no, we got to talk. Like I just had all these emotions. Right. And so she thought I was going to like break the wedding off like the week of the wedding or something like that. And I was like, no. Like I just needed to process. And she was just like, she accepted me. Like it was like one of the first times like in my life outside of like parental love that I felt God's love or somebody's love that was just like, no, I love you for who you are. Right. And that it like broke that piece for me, the pencil, right? Proverbial pencil. Yeah. And it was like, oh, okay. I can be me with you. Yeah. Like no, maybe not anybody else, but with you, this one person, I can be fully me and that's okay.
And was it at that moment? Like, was it at the wedding where you cried again? You had that conversation right?
It was like 3 or 4 days before the wedding.
Okay.
I think we had that conversation.
Okay. Did you realize that throughout? Was that, you look at it now and you know that's a decision. Was this more kind of buried in your subconscious or did you just kind of go through not realizing it was that moment?
Yeah, definitely buried in the subconscious.
Was it?
But I think in that moment, like leading up to that, like that was a big moment, right? You get married, that's huge. That's a cornerstone moment of your life. So I think I knew subconsciously even that like, okay, I have to have some kind of conversation. There's something going on inside of me. Like I didn't know it was about tears or emotions. I just knew there was like, we need to have some kind of conversation. And I took it very seriously and she was terrified. Right. But I don't give that advice. I would have handled that very differently looking back.
And you've been 16 years married now. 16
married, 17 together as of Halloween, this last Halloween.
Well, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
And you guys have how many kids?
We have 5 kids.
So you're busy.
Busy all the time. Cheerleading, hockey, basketball, football, you name it.
Minivan?
2 minivans.
Two minivans
and a Jeep and 2 Jeeps actually. So we got 4 vehicles. Yeah. So
really cool.
Got to get them around.
So lead us up. I mean, we're new friends. We've hung out a couple times. We're doing some work together. We'll talk business in a little bit, but just kind of share your story of how you got here. You know, you're currently really involved in the community. You're an EOS implementer. You helped take a company from really big to really, really big. Yeah. And it sold. Yeah. And you just got tons of wisdom and experience, but you kind of started with, hey, buddy broke the pencil. Yeah. Buried the tears. Yep. Just share a little bit more of some of those impactful moments of what's led you here.
Yeah, man. So I grew up in Fort Collins, Poudre Valley Hospital. I always like to ask people if they're natives or not. I'm not one of these. I love when other people move here, right? So I'm not a hater on that aspect, but I think it's fun to tell people, yeah, no, I was born at Poudre Valley, went to Timnath Elementary, Preston Junior High at the time, which now my kids go to, which is a trip. Fort Collins High School, Front Range, CSU. So I hit them all from a school standpoint.
It's everything in Fort Collins.
Right. Every single one, every level. And yeah, it's awesome. I love this place. After high school, I moved to Wichita, Kansas for a little while. And that was amazing. And that was just more so to run away. Not really sure what from. Okay. I had a buddy who was supposed to go to the University of Oregon for college, and I would have flunked out big time. And he's like, hey, I'm moving to Kansas to hang out with my girlfriend, who's now his wife. And I was like, it sounds great. Let's go. And it was a split-second decision, and took off there and lived there 3 or 4 years, and then did something similar and moved to Manchester, England for a year. Okay. And that was a Google search because I wanted to play music. And
interesting.
Yeah, man. So did that and lived over there for a year and traveled around and met some amazing people. I have a guy who I would consider a brother now that lives there. And then moved back here, and I guess kind of the rest is history. I met my wife and got married and started the career thing.
You met her here?
Yes.
In Colorado.
Yep.
Is she also from here? Is she native?
Kersey, just outside Greeley.
Okay. So you guys weren't childhood sweethearts or anything. You met after the post high school.
Yep.
And then going out to Kansas and back east, was that to pursue music? What was the initial intention?
Yeah. Wichita honestly was to just get away and run away. I don't think I knew what from, but I didn't want to go to school is all I knew. And the options at that point were stay at home and live with my parents or go to the University of Oregon, both of which didn't sound great.
Hey, just want to give a big shout out to one of our sponsors, Imprint Digital. If you're a small business owner, one of the things that you need to navigate to be successful is all things online and digital in terms of marketing and your messaging. Imprint Digital, they're the real deal. They are the professionals and they know this world inside and out. Make sure to visit their website at imprint-digital.com. A big shout out and thank you to one of our sponsors, M&D Painting and Roofing. M&D was actually founded by my wife, Emily, and I back in 2005. And for the last 2 decades, we've been here in Northern Colorado of one of the leaders in residential and commercial repainting, as well as most recently installing residential roofs. So if you need to paint, re-roof, you got hit by a hailstorm, we can take care of whatever your home needs from top to bottom. You can find us on the web at mandepainting.com.
Okay.
And so my buddy gave me a third option and I jumped at it and moved out there and was a part-time youth pastor and worked at a shoe store. And so it was kind of my first experience in that world and in pastoring and working and bivocational and all that kind of stuff.
I worked at a shoe store for a little bit in high school.
Yeah.
I remember organizing all the shoelaces, right? By the size and the color and all that.
Yep. Loved it, man. Like the weird part is like, I'm not a feet person, right? That's the weird part of that is like, I love shoes and I love that, but like people's feet, that's a whole nother podcast.
You got to touch a whole bunch of feet, man.
Yeah.
Kind of weird.
They smell and their socks aren't always clean. It's like, ugh, man. I just would buy people socks is ultimately what I would do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're here today. So we meet, tell me a little bit about the business story, Pet Dine and what led you from there to the exit to what you're doing right now.
Yep. So like I told you, so I was a youth pastor. So as I started my career, as I became a believer, I thought that was the only path. I thought I had to be a pastor. I didn't think there was anything else that I could do that would be of value to God in any way. And so started doing that. And then when I moved back here, I worked at Timberline Church within the young adults team there. That's where I met my wife. So I did that and didn't really love it. Didn't understand really why, but my frustration was it didn't run like a business. And no church is perfect, but that was just internally, that was frustrating to me. And so then went on and worked at a publishing company here locally and, okay, great. This is fantastic. Like it runs like a business, but it was overtly a business and didn't feel as though always the best choice or the most integral pieces or choices were made. And so then moved on and was let go there, was the last person of the youth ministry department and was let go. Started working at a local nonprofit. Did that for a year and a half, and that was okay. Didn't love it. Learned a lot, I guess, and then worked at a roofing company, and that was fun, but it still wasn't it. And so it was like trying to piece together all of these weird like experiences and industries, and remember, like I am good at a lot of things. I'm not great at anything kind of feeling, and happened into a local startup in the pet industry, and was employee number 11. And we were able to grow the business pretty quickly in about 3.5, 4 years from about 25 million to over 100 million. And that was the moment where I was like, okay, like I am good at something. Like I have a value here in the business world from the experiences that I've had, whether it was in the church, whether it was a nonprofit, whether it was in services and construction and roofing. And to do that gave me such a confidence boost coming from those other failures. I felt like to be like, man, like just on a high. And then they subsequently sold that business, which was part of the goal for the business. And they exited, and I learned pretty quickly I needed to figure out a plan B. and kind of move on. And it wasn't my jam, wasn't my kind of place and people. And so, yeah, I kind of fell into then what I'm doing now.
Really awesome.
Yeah.
So the fact you found where you really shine.
Yep.
In that space.
Yep.
One of the things I wanted to kind of backtrack to is you mentioned this, and I hear this a lot, but hey, churches and even, nonprofits, people that have the heart and the cause and the passion, the mission, they don't understand the ops and the businesses. It would be great if every church could be run like a business, and then it would be really awesome if businesses could understand more of the heart piece and the pouring into people piece. So what would be 3 pieces of advice you would give to a church or a nonprofit that's struggling with that? They've got the mission, they've got the passion, they know who they're helping, but it's just a hot mess operationally or business-wise.
Yeah, I think you have to have wisdom around you. You have to have wise business people around you. That would be my first number one. I think it's like any small business or any entrepreneurial adventure, right? I would say a church is really no different. I think, so having wise counsel, business-based counsel around you. 2, you got to have an open mind. A church, just like a business, is going to change. It's going to ebb and flow. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have changes that are unforeseen, right? And you have to be able to adjust and look at it that way. Thirdly, you have to find a group of people from a leadership perspective that are all on the same page, right? Those 3 things, and there's probably more than that, but from my experiences, those are the 3 things. If you can have the wise counsel and you can have the people around you and you can build the things that you need to build, and you have an understanding that church, like a business, is going to change, there's obviously going to be a P&L. There's going to be finances. There's going to be bills that have to be paid. Those are non-negotiables. It's more of then, okay, how do we do this and garner what we've been given as a church, right? Or a business, right? And do the best that we can with what God has given us.
Do you think all churches, I mean, you haven't been in all churches, but you've been in some, do you think they just miss that component? Don't think about that component? Is it specific to every church?
That's a great question. I think all churches in some aspect, like all businesses, struggle with certain pieces of that for sure. Right. Like what we talk about, right? When we're working with you guys is like all the components, right? Like not every single business is going to be great at everything, right? You're going to have your strengths. Certain people are going to be strong at certain things. So to be able to find those things, and I think within a church culture, it's always known as, like when I was a youth pastor, I never got paid, right? It was like, but they kept asking me to do more.
Yeah.
Right. So then I'd have to pick up more shifts at late shifts at the shoe store. And it was fine because I loved it and the kids were awesome and all that kind of stuff, but it wasn't conducive to then getting married and having a family. Yeah. Right. And so then you'd have other conversations where it's like, you'd look at the P&L in a meeting and you're like, hey, we have to let go 3 people. Like, that's how you solve this. No, we can't do that. Like we're kind, we're supporting these people. And it's like, well, I get that, but you still have to create a place here to have a long-term ministry or a long-term business. I think it's one and the same. It's just different nomenclature.
Yeah.
And I think there's a level of church leadership that has become now, probably more than ever, I would assume because of similar experiences, far more educated from a business standpoint.
Yeah. Now, what are the lessons on the flip side, right? That businesses could learn from the churches or the nonprofits?
Yeah, right. Well, we sat in something a couple of weeks ago, the Kingdom Way, right? And yes. I think in there they had some great conversations, right? But I think there's that dichotomy too of how does a business support the church, right? And I think that's changing. And maybe this is just me in my own journey. I feel like for one, that's changing in where business owners are feeling more comfortable saying, hey, I believe in Jesus, or I'm a Christian, or I'm a faith-based owner, however you want to say it. That is becoming more comfortable. Mm-hmm. I think the other side of that, and that's where they can learn from the church, right? The church is obvious, right? They have the cross, they have a church on their name, right? That's very, very obvious. From a business standpoint, to say that, there is a level of risk that can feel like that comes with that. But I think what the business is learning from the church in that is you're not necessarily being the church if you're not in some way, shape, or form breathing your faith into what you do on a daily basis.
Yeah. You can't walk into the doors of the business and turn that off or
Right.
hang that up in the closet with your coat.
No. And that's where I was like, even like joining the Foundry for me, it was, okay, I know how to do this and I know how to do this, but I'd never, even in the church, even in nonprofits, even in publishing companies where we, served youth pastors, I never did that. Like they never came together, right? We didn't we'd pray over things and do stuff, but it was never like this.
Yeah.
Right. So learning to do that for me is a whole new adventure.
So now you're doing it. Now talk about what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I am an EOS implementer, so entrepreneurial operating system. We loosely use that in growing the Pet Dine, the business that I was a part of here in Fort Collins. And we saw some great fruits from it. I would say, and I say loosely, mostly unintentional. We were moving so fast. But now in exiting that and looking and having irons in the fire, like this was the thing where I felt like, man, God was saying, hey, I gave you these experiences in the church, in the nonprofit, in roofing, in watching your dad's construction business, all these things for this, right? Like there's a pastoral element, right? We're working with you. Like we get to have some really cool conversations, right? Where the pastoral part of me that is built into me, like really comes alive. And then we, at the same point, get to transition to this business conversation, right? Like in the next second. And that to me is like mind blowing, right? As I'm saying, I'm trying to learn how to do this. And at the same point, I'm now in this space where I'm doing it, but there's that imposter side where it's like, do you know what you're doing? Like, do you understand? Right. But it's like, I was taught all of these things through life for this, and to be, like I said, at 41 and to be like, hey, yeah, you know what you're doing. You just have to believe and step into that space and have those conversations.
So it's funny you mentioned that, the 41, call it midlife, right? If you're going to go to
sure.
82, I'm going to go to 84. We'll see. We'll see.
Oh, I hope that's longer.
We'll see. But no, I had a lot of that this year too, of just all of this culmination of all these different businesses experience. There's a lot of chaos this year. It's like, how do you want to rein that all in with, the men that you work with? Because you're working with a lot of people in the business space, but men our age going through that. Do you see that a lot? Like, what do you tell them? Because I get to one point and I'm like, yeah, I'm still young. But then I also look back and I go, I'm kind of old.
Yeah. I think we always, and I would take this even from a church standpoint. I remember being a youth pastor and it was really difficult to get older men to come and volunteer. And the conversations we would have with them were about, hey, you have something to give this 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kid that maybe they don't have.
Yeah.
But you and I sit here and we could probably both say, I don't feel like I know anything that I could offer. Right. So there's the lie that we then believe in that says, I can't help them. Right. And we can't support or do something, but when we can. Right. So there's that piece of it that we have to figure out how we support and help other people and come out of ourselves. But you have to be guided almost or pushed to a certain extent or get to a place where your eyes are open to that.
Yeah. So from here, like what's the vision for you with where you're taking this for you, your family, for the businesses you're working with?
Yeah, this is the ride or die. So this is our, we went kind of all in and we knew, my wife and I talked quite a bit. We knew at some point, we've always done side businesses. We've always done, little things here and there, but we never dove headfirst full in, right? From an entrepreneurial, live or die standpoint, but we knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Cause we talked about it enough. And this came up and, becoming and running and building our own practice, in Northern Colorado. And it was really clear in January of this year. We sat down and our 12-year-old was about to be 12. He was 11. He's turning 12 in February. And we sat down and we're like, 10 years, he'll be 22 and he could be married.
Yeah.
And we were just sat there in silence for 5 minutes. and it just like hit us like a ton of bricks. So you ask like, what's the end game? Like the end game is to build the life that we want. And this gave us the opportunity to build work in around that.
Yes.
And to not be opposite, right? Like the corporate culture that I had left was who could send the first email, who could send the last email. So if you could send it at 4 a.m. and you could send it at 10 p.m., you felt like a winner. Didn't matter really what it was. It just showed that you were doing stuff.
As long as you sent it.
Right. And it was like, I don't want that. Like, I want to be at my kids' stuff. Right. And so we had to figure out how to do that.
How was the conversation with your wife? So you're like, hey, we're going all in, ride or die. We cut the cords. You know, you seem like a pretty direct, you're the visionary to a degree, right? You're implementing things, but how was that conversation with her? Because Emily and I, we're totally opposite. She's very risk averse. She likes to poke holes in all of the 27 ideas that I have. But how did that play out in the marriage dynamic for you guys?
So it's funny you say that. So we have that conversation a lot, and normally her response back will be, hey, I trust you. And I hate that. Like, just tell me your opinion, please. Like I'm asking you as my wife, my best friend, like, what is that? And she didn't do that in this. So I was amazingly grateful. Like she knew just where we were and where I was, that we needed to do something. And she goes, she's been probably the most amazing. Like she got me to cry. Right. But like, even from that, and even in this moment of this year, it was like, no, like you're made for this. Like you can, not only can you do this, like you will crush this. Like, and to have somebody like that, like almost brings tears to my eyes now, like to say she believes in me that much, probably more than I believed in myself or even still believe in myself.
If you're a Christian small business owner and you live in Northern Colorado, you have to check out one of our sponsors, the Foundry Advisory. The Foundry is a Christian executive peer advising group that connects other business owners in the community to help you focus on your faith, your life, your leadership, and your business. Make sure to check them out at thefoundryadvisory.com. Hey, if you're a business owner and you need to do some renovation in your space or possibly build a building from the ground up, you have to connect with one of our sponsors, Mendel Construction. Mendel Construction is a commercial construction company that's been around since 1997, serving all of Colorado. They can do a small tenant finish all the way up to ground up construction of a new building for your business. Check them out at mendelandcompany.com. That's MENDEL and company.com. If your life or business are cluttered up with junk right now, then you've got to reach out to one of our sponsors, Hulk Addicts Hauling. Hulk Addicts can come out to your home or business to do anything from removing junk to appliances. Maybe you're demoing or doing construction on a property and you need it cleared out. Maybe you need a big dumpster dropped off that they can roll off later. Make sure to check them out at hulkaddictsjunk.com. They are serving all of Northern Colorado as well as up and down the Front Range.
Right. And so to have that cheerleader, that person right by your side, it made that conversation really easy. Right. So I'm very blessed that she was able to articulate that, you know, the way that she did and when she did. And then when the opportunities came up, she was like, yeah, let's go.
She was ready.
She was ready.
It's so cool to have that, because I have those moments of doubt and frustration where, you know, you're losing, you get the imposter syndrome or things are in a lull and you're like, wait a minute, what the heck did I just jump into? And then, you know, your best friend's right there. Yeah, I got your back. I believe in you. I think that's a huge key for an entrepreneur. I see guys that have that and then guys that don't. And it's hard to keep it going when.
Well, and like you too, I think we talked about this once too, like, and now she works with me in the business, right? Yes. And side by side. And that's been awesome, right? Like it has its challenges and we have to draw the boundaries there, but like to do it with her is so fun, right? Like we're building this together. It's not just me, right? And to have that and that shared vision, right, of ride or die in this is, it's so exhilarating, man. Yeah.
How do you keep it separate, the family, the marriage dynamic, and then work?
Yeah, we try really hard. I would say we're learning. We try really hard to keep it between like 8 and 5 work conversations. Obviously there's scheduling, right, that comes in with kids and life and all that kind of stuff. And hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And you have to talk about stuff. But She is a nurse by trade. And so she works 1 to 2 shifts a week. And so traditionally we try to now have Mondays where I have a ton of calls in the morning, and then the afternoons are her and I. And so we'll do 2 things in that. We'll do our work meeting. Hey, what do you need? How can we help each other? All that kind of stuff. And then we'll just try and do something together, whether we're running errands, and then continue talking about work stuff is totally fine in that space.
Yeah.
But we're just spending that time together. But that's proven when we're able to do that, the rest of the week for us goes really well. When we don't do that, that's then where there's some of the unspoken work, marriage things kind of come in, and the grayness.
Like what's going on and who's doing it when.
Right.
There
wasn't closure, or there wasn't direction, or I'm frustrated because I asked you to do something and you didn't do it. And I can't talk to her how I would, a staff member previously. Not that it would have been rude, but I can be far more direct.
Yeah.
Right. When it's your wife, you can't just come back and say, hey, you didn't get that done. I need it done yesterday. Right. Like sometimes you have to say that and be direct in those moments. Well, when it's your wife, you kind of have to handle that a little softer.
Can you write her up? Have you written her up?
No,
your wife?
No, I'm not sure that would go over very well.
No,
that would end poorly for me.
What are some tips you have for entrepreneurs that are working with their spouse in business? What are some of the things that you've learned? I've got a couple, but would love to hear what you've got too.
Ask what the role title is. We talk about roles or titles aren't big, but I would say in marriage, it's very big. So how do you introduce her? So when she's at a work event with me, how do I introduce her? If I introduce her as my assistant, I know that I'm going to get not just death stares all evening, but I'm going to get the cold shoulder for a while.
Yes,
right?
you are.
And so I'll call
maybe bad dinner,
right?
Or no dinner,
right?
If any.
Yeah, and it's like, this is my wife, and she's a partner in the business with me. Right, is what we've come to. Right, doesn't matter what we're doing or not doing. We're doing this together, right? And giving her that equity, verbally as well. In that, it would be the big piece.
I would add to that, never to introduce her by whatever the role is other than wife. Like that's your wife first and ever and always.
Yep.
Who happens to be working in the business as a partner.
Yes.
With you guys together.
100%.
Love that. What else would you say? Where did you kind of get it wrong or maybe screw it up?
Yeah, I think we had to really outline and learn what she wanted to do versus what I needed done. So I needed in my mind certain tasks or things done, and I would just send an email that would very probably not clear. Hey, can you follow up with blah, blah, blah? And then it wasn't done, but that's not her skill set or nor what she wanted to do. Right. And so it was then having that conversation. Okay, you're really good at the spreadsheets, the finances, all these. Great. You go do all those things. What don't you want to do? Right. We didn't have that conversation in the first couple of weeks. Yeah. So we kind of learned on the go. Once we got that down, we had just an understanding, like we talk about too in the accountability chart stuff with the OS side, is like we had the 5 bullets of what she did and was responsible for.
Yes.
We were good, right? Like, and she knew and I knew, and we could both kind of move on. Okay, I'm not going to ask her to do that. I'll just do it. Or vice versa. Hey, I can send this to her and not give her any direction and it'll get done. Right. And so to be able to have that understanding and forced of both nature and work of what I do, learning that and implementing that within our own business and our marriage, right, took that to another level.
And what you do can also flow over into the personal and the family and the marriage dynamic as well. So how's that been to take this system and process that you're teaching to entrepreneurs, business owners, and then roll that over personally?
Super easy when you're talking about yourself, right? So you can do this, like we call the vision traction organizer, right? And has the 8 questions, your core focus, and all those kind of things. From an individual standpoint, super easy, right? Yeah. When you start talking about a family, can't really have like a leadership team meeting with 12-year-olds and 6-year-olds, right? Like, hey, where do you guys want to go to vacation? The beach. Well, we can't afford the beach. So how about Horsetooth, right? Like, so you have to have a very different conversation. But what it helps us do, and we're working through it, and it's been really slow because it's forced us, like Elena and I, my wife, to ask the question, well, where do we want to be in 10 years, right? We made changes in January because we realized what our life would look like in 10 years. So what do we want in 10 years, right? We want to be able to go where our kids are. She thinks they're all going to be here we have 5 kids, so most likely at least one
Yep.
won't be here, right? But like we want to be able to go where they are. We want to be able to travel. We want to be able to do those things. Well, then we have to make different decisions, right, to be able to do that. And so it forced us to sit down in our hectic life, which this is where coming together again, like doing these two things, like we'd never done that. We'd always asked, oh yeah, that sounds great. We want to do that.
Yeah.
Well, now we have 5 kids. 10 years from now, they could graduate college and we still haven't done it. Right.
Yeah.
So it forced us to sit down and have those conversations. What do we want? Where do we want to go? What does that look like? And how are we going to get there? Right. Together. Right. And to process through that. And that takes time. Right. That's not I feel like in a business life, that's probably a little bit easier. Right. Because you think about that more consistently than you do your own, at least for us, your own personal life.
Well, I know for us, we'll be so just busy with the chaos of like day to day, right?
Yes.
And we only have 2 kids.
Yeah.
I'm like, so you've got 5, you've got a lot. So I couldn't even imagine all of that, and then just being able to peel away. But it's important, right? It's that working on the business, on the relationship,
Yes.
on the future, and then painting a picture out. I think a lot of people can't paint past 3, 4, 5 years,
Right.
But I had that realization about Haley. She's 13.
Right.
She asked when she can kiss a boy the other day. I'm like, hold on a minute. Like what? Like, what? 10 years? I mean, wait, Emily and I were married at 22, 23. So I'm like, there we go.
Yeah.
10 years, 3 years Riley's out of high school. So we just started having those conversations.
Yeah.
So what other, we're middle-aged. Is that what we are? We mid-aged? My kid calls me ancient. Riley says I'm ancient. Both of my kids do.
We could talk about kid slang. Ancient to my kids means like he thinks anything other than an iPhone is ancient.
Wow.
So, I mean, it depends. It depends on the child, I guess. I would say we're not middle-aged. I would say that's 50. But maybe at 50, we'll say it's 60. I don't know.
So as we're circling, right?
Yeah.
We just keep pushing it off.
Yeah, just keep pushing it
We're
off.
really middle-aged, right? We just don't want to admit it. But like what other, anybody that's transitioning or they're in the business space and they're not having these thoughts or these conversations, what would you share to somebody in that place and space?
I was talking to somebody actually the other day, and he was asking what it took for me to make a change, because he's in a job and he's done it for 7-8 years. He's successful, right? From a US standpoint, and does fine, doesn't love it. Right. But it provides. Right. And so there's 2 things that I think separate a lot of people in this. One, and there's nothing wrong with these. I think for some people, that comfortability of paycheck or benefits or consistency, whatever it is very soothing and peaceful. And I get that. We all have different backstories, right, to get to where we are.
Yes.
There's another group of people then where they say, okay, that's fantastic, but I hate this and I hate my life and I hate what I'm doing and I become a miserable person. So in that moment and in that place, you have to then ask the question. And this is what I was asking this guy. I was like, well, when you go home, who are you? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, are you nice to your wife? Yeah. Like, are you short? Are you angry? Are you frustrated? Are you drinking every night? Like, what are you doing when you go home? And he was like, sat there and thought about it. And he goes, yeah, I'm not happy. Like he realized really quickly, right? Because that's a flows over. I think they said at the thing we were at, 60% of our time is spent at work or on work, right? And so to do that and for it not to carry home, ask your wife. She'll tell you really quick. Yeah. She knows, right? So in that, I was telling him, I was like, I think it's pretty clear. You realize something's wrong. You need to start asking the questions of what do you want to do? Do you want to do this for the rest of your life? If we met in 5 years and we sat down and had the same conversation, would you be happy?
Yeah.
Or would you be frustrated with yourself? Right? Not everybody's built to be an entrepreneur or start a business.
No, because I think 60%, that's if you're an employee.
Yeah.
Right? Or, I mean, an entrepreneur can be, I feel like for me, it never turns off.
Right.
We got to be really careful of that. It's like, stop talking about work. Like, this isn't work for me. I love it.
Yeah. Stop. Right. Yeah. It's energizing, right? And it is. You have to put your notes in your phone and wake up at 2 a.m. and put them on the issues list, right?
Yes. Yes, I do. What have been some of your biggest discoveries being a new entrepreneur? Like you've helped grow businesses and be a part of all these different things, but being, cutting the cord, all in, feet to the fire.
I think the isolation that can be there because you are there's groups, there's networking, there's all that kind of stuff, but you're by yourself and it's sink or swim on you. And that's both exhilarating, right? And freeing, but that sense of relaxation or I made it, I don't think that ever goes away. I think that's always there. So I think that piece for me as a realization was mind blowing. And the isolation side that comes with that of like, even yesterday, like I had a great day. I went and talked to some people in a group and hung out with my dad and my sister and we had a beer. Like It was awesome. But like I got home and I was like, man, I haven't done anything that brings finances to my family. I haven't done anything that pays the bills today, and those moments of not even imposter, but of isolation then. And you have to do the mental battle of, okay, did I sink a ton of money, time and effort into this? And do I just need to go get a job?
Yeah.
To support my family.
So for you, cause I'm launching some new stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm investing heavily in all of these things that we're doing. And it's gaining direction and traction as it goes. Right. So it's kind of this moving target. And I have those conversations all the time. I feel like for me, it's part of the process. It's like, how did you not, or maybe you didn't realize that you did in taking that time with the family, you get some rest, some rejuvenation, you can come back. But I have that, like, I didn't close business. I didn't bring dollars in yesterday. So how do you manage through that, having that conversation?
So my sister and I talk about this a lot. So she is a huge Enneagram person.
Yes.
And so I am an Enneagram 9 and my deadly sin, as they call it, is sloth. Right. And so I was fighting that a long time. So she and I had this conversation like 2 weeks ago, I think. And I was like, I'm not that. And she goes, no, you are. You have just learned that you don't like it.
Yeah.
And so I have learned ways to discipline myself and build structure into my life, probably overstructure, to where I'm not allowed to be slothful, right? To where I'm not allowed, other than like a weekend, to sit down and watch a football game.
Yeah.
Right. I create a pattern into my life where I get up at 4:30 in the morning, I go to the gym. I come home from the gym and I sit and I either stretch or meditate at the house, listen to something, do something 30, 45 minutes before the kids get up at 7:30 or get up at 7. Kids leave the house then at 7:30, helping them do whatever they need to do. And then from 8 to 9, I'm doing my focus time. What are my 3 main things I need to get done in this day? And then my personal affirmations as well. Yeah. And I'm doing those things. And if I don't do those things, that day then feels wasteful.
Yeah. Sloth starts coming
and
out.
I'm like, oh, yes. Manchester City's playing today. I'll just sit and watch that. Or I'll just go putt some golf balls today.
Yeah.
Right. Which isn't bad, but I have to simplify it down to the aspect of, if I can get these 3 things done today, I'll feel pretty dang good by the end of it.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I don't do that, my mind won't allow me to feel like the day was positive or affirming.
Do you feel like you have to have that every day, or do you just have a total day where that's not, or like no business needs to happen? Because I struggle with that. I feel like you always have to be doing something to generate business, move the needle forward.
Yeah. Every weekday. Yeah. If it's a business day for me, I have to have that. Otherwise I feel like it is a waste. And so it's different, right? Like yesterday I didn't have it because my routine was off because of the timing of how I had to be places.
Yeah.
So I didn't prepare enough to make sure that my day was going to be as productive or as positive mentally as I thought it could be.
Yeah.
Right. Like I did all the things I needed to do, but I didn't have them. And it's as simple as I didn't write them down and check them off. There's a really enjoyable piece to that, right? To like, oh, I did that one and that one.
And that drives it forward.
Man, I got 3 things done. Yes. That's amazing. Right. I didn't have that yesterday.
What else have you discovered that's been surprising or insightful, maybe not expected about the entrepreneurial ride?
I think the network of faith-based businesses is far larger than I ever thought it was. I think I never realized, even businesses that I've met now that I've known for a long time, And now I'm like, we're having these conversations and like, oh yeah, we do this or we go to that. And we're at this church. We're like, what? Like, how did I not know this? Like, I guess I never thought that there was, again, my story is like, I thought I had to be a pastor, right? So to do that and now to not do that to a certain extent and to realize that in business, wow, like there's a lot of people that are doing this, right? Like I'm not alone in that. There's a lot of faith-based business owners that are trying to do everything they can biblically or to grow the faith or his name or any of that. And so I think for me, that has been amazingly eye-opening in a positive way to allow myself the encouragement of like I was saying, like people need to have wise business people around them. Well, I want wise Christian business people around me.
Yes.
Right. So that I can learn from that because I'm realizing that that's a thing now. I just thought they went to work when I was a youth pastor. Why don't you donate more money? That
event that we were just at, the Kingdom Way,
yeah,
that was huge.
Yes,
I said, "Oh, it's in this big auditorium over
right.
there. There's a lot of people here. I didn't even realize that either."
Yeah. And sponsorships, and I was like, "Man, like look at this!" Like, and it wasn't like from a selfish lead opportunity standpoint. It was like from an awe of God standpoint of like, He's working in so many different areas and industries and people's lives that I never realized or never opened my eyes to realize.
Yeah. So as a faith-based business guy, we have a lot of faith-based people and business people, leaders listening to this. How have you been able to integrate your faith into business? I had a real hard time doing that personally. For a long time, I felt like it was very compartmentalized for me. Yeah. It's just like, hey, you got to be careful about sharing it. There's HR, and I know this person's not. Like, what are some things that you do?
I think the first one, and this has been recent, and honestly, so I'll tell you this. So it was before I came and met with you and your team. This is the first time I've ever done this in my entire life. I got down on my knees and I prayed before I left my house and came and met with you guys.
Yeah.
And I have never done that in a business thing. I've never done that for anything other than a decision to let somebody go or not. Right. That was the only moment I felt like I ever truly took it and laid it before God. Right. So to lay that before him before I left, like, was an act of surrender. And it was a peacefulness internally to just say, hey, this is yours. Like, I'm going to be me authentically, and I'm going to do what I have. I'm going to offer whatever I have to offer, and the rest is yours.
Yeah.
Right. I can't control anything else in this process, and that was so crazy, partly because we now work together, right?
Yeah.
Which is a huge blessing. But in that, then to be like, okay, how do I do that more? Like, God bless that small act of surrender, right? How do I pray for those opportunities more?
Yeah. So within the praying, but then praying specifically for surrender, we're both in charge, in control, type A, go get it done, close the deal, track the numbers.
Totally.
That sounds crazy. What do you mean? Like surrender? Like I think about that. It sounds and seems like you shouldn't be doing that.
With anything we do in business or life, like there's only so much we can do.
Yeah.
Right. Like whether like your story, you knocked on doors, right?
Yeah.
You can't force people to say yes.
Yeah.
They need something, right? You can get better at your craft and your message and your marketing and your pitches and your collateral, all those kind of things in your service. But ultimately you're relying on someone else in some capacity to take a chance and believe in you and your business and what you have to offer.
Yeah.
Right. And that can both be vulnerable and scary, as well as redeeming, right, in that moment too. And that's where the surrender part comes, is like, and this is where I learned from my dad. My dad was blue collar, ran a construction company here in town when I was a kid, and always just worked his butt off. Like to this day, he's in the shop probably right now, like building something, and he's 76, right? Like just worked. Like, so learning that side of it, like and he was always like, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
And if you're prepared and you do everything that you're able to do, that's all you can do. The rest is then up to somebody else, decision wise or approval wise. And you have to be okay with that. And that's where that surrender piece comes in, right?
There's a relief of that in a way. And that's hard for me to do. I talk to a lot of other people. They've always got to be in control. They've always got to be in charge, and they don't let that go, put it into God's hands and let it play out. And then you also just talked about being authentically you and uniquely you. This is how I'm going to roll in. And this is like we just realized out at the photo wall.
Yeah.
I wear black shirts a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. You and the guest. I had
and we like subconsciously made this happen, right? We didn't even talk about it. But it's just, this is how I roll. This is how I dress.
All future guests have to wear black now.
I guess so. That's a thing. I want to close up as we get towards the end here, being a faith-based guy in business, sharing your journey, the things you've learned, these discoveries, getting back to your original self. Like, where do you see guys get tied up or off track? And what if somebody's off track? How do you get back on? Because I talk to a lot of people in that space, and they just have a lull. I get them. I've just gone through one. And they suck. They're not fun. But how do you think they get there? How do they get out?
So I think there's a few things, and we talked about it in one of our sessions too. Like I think we have this unexpected path that we envision, right? And we see it like this. Yeah. It's straight up. There's no stopping. There's nothing that gets in the way. Right. And it's going to go like this. I think we understand that, but when it does that, we're not ready for it. Right. But it's that when it gets here, like the hitting the ceiling thing that we talked about, right? You get there at some point, a business or in life, you're going to hit a ceiling and you're going to need help. Yeah. Whether from your wife, whether from your kids, whether from friends or coaches or whomever, you're going to need to lean on somebody to allow yourself to evolve, right? And to move through that. Yeah. And I think then when we do that, right, you got through that, right? Your season. Yeah. Well, the sucky part, and this is the authentic part of life, it's going to happen again, Matt. Yeah. At some point. Yep. Right. So at some point, you got through that one. Well, you're going to hit another one. Nobody knows when. Yep. You're going to hit another one. Right. So you have to learn from that one and allow yourself to breathe and walk through it. And hopefully you handle the next one better. Yeah. Right. And you handle it with more maturity, right? Or whatever it was, like, that process of it is part of the life process. And we have to be able to grow with it and learn and lean on the things that we've done from the past. Yeah.
Man, thanks for rolling out here today.
Yeah, man.
And sharing all this stuff. Anything you feel like we missed that?
Oh, there's a whole lot.
Share. We need to do another episode.
Yeah, we can do a whole nother episode.
Anything else you want to throw in just to kind of tie up everything we've been talking about? Just that, being authentically you and like asking for help and leaning on God and leaning on others, understanding your strengths. How do we sum this all up?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's, and what I try to tell my kids all the time too, and this is where the self-actualization of myself at 41 again is like, I wish I would have been more authentically me previously. Yeah. Because being me and being authentically me has not only given me more joy and peace, but I've been able to find people that are asking me now, hey, how come you seem so happy? Yes. Or how come, like, thank you for your authenticity. Like I did a post about, I think I told you this, I did a post and a test, right? I did a test about mental health, a video of myself. And I did another post, like something super salesy, very similar in video style. And I knew exactly what would happen, right? The sales one bombed. I don't even think it had a like, right? The other one, like where I was crying about my journey on mental health, like blew up. Yeah. And for that to be accepted, right? And to be acknowledged, right? It wasn't for that reason. It was to help people. But I think that side of it, like if I would have been me earlier, maybe I could have had a larger impact. Yeah. In some way, shape, or form.
How many more opportunities, connections to impact people for the kingdom, right? For the world. Love that. Yeah. Man. Thanks for coming out. And we got to have you back on more episodes because I think we just scratched the surface today. Yeah. So before we wrap up, every guest that comes to the big color wall outside, and you grab your favorite color.
No, you grabbed it because I'm colorblind.
You just said green. I grabbed a nice green that looks good. You've got a statement that you want to leave with the world when you leave it. What is it?
Yeah, I think it's exactly what I said. It's be you. Nobody else can be you. We are created unique and gifted and perfectly in His image. And I think when we can learn that and accept it, even on a small scale, that's when we can really start to do amazing things and impact people in life and the spheres that we're in. And that's something that I'll probably start to have as a flagpole in my life and with my kids too, of be you. Like that you are awesome, right? Matt, you are awesome. And I think when you tell people that too, like that's impactful. Like Matt, you're awesome.
Yeah.
You are created amazing, and your ability to impact people in life, in business, right, is a gift that nobody else has. Yeah. Right. So that'd be it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, man.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate having you here.
Of course.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Hey, if you're a faith-based father and you have a son who is entering into adolescence and manhood, you've got to check out an experience that we have June 2024. It is the Father-Son Hike of a Lifetime on the Camino de Santiago in Spain. I'm going to be taking a group of men and their sons over to Spain to hike some of the most beautiful scenery through northern Spain on the Camino de Santiago. We're going to hike 6 days, 70 miles, 200,000 steps, and have completely disconnected, unplugged, uninterrupted time with our sons. We are going to grow and bond and deepen our relationships with our sons through some very intentionally curated adventures, challenges, and experiences. And we're going to do so in the company of other faith-based men who have the same desire to grow and deepen their story with their son. If you're interested in this adventure with us, go to mattshoup.com. Click the Go to Spain button and check out the Father-Son Hike of a Lifetime.